Hi everybody, Lisa here from Cool Kids Hub. Today I wanted to talk about 3-month-old sleep schedules. So as your little one kind of gets to this 3-month mark, they're really leaving those newborn weeks behind them. They're starting to fill out a little bit, start to becoming more aware of their surroundings. You might even at this age start to see a little bit more predictability to their sleep. You know, how many naps they take, how long their naps are. You might start to get longer stretches at night, maybe 5 to 6 hours. Now, don't worry if your baby is not consolidating their sleep yet. It is around this age they start to really produce that hormone melatonin, which obviously does start to encourage more sleep, and so you will start to see those longer stretches. Now, if you're wondering how much sleep does my 3-month-old need, well, typically a 3-month-old needs between 14 and 16 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. They will generally take between 3 and 4 naps, and their naps can still be short, so anything from 30 minutes up to 2 or even 3 hours. You will see, as I said, some consolidation of that nighttime sleep, and you will find that generally your little one might take one long nap, typically the first nap of the day, and then actually kind of cat nap the other nap. So like I said, 30 minutes at a time. And they can at this age now have an awake window of between 75 minutes to 2 hours to 120 minutes. And that's typically how much sleep your little one needs at this age. Now, if you don't worry too much, at a 3-month mark, you're still not looking for a strict schedule. It's more about setting up a routine and establishing healthy sleep habits. So what are some of the tips to make sure that you do that? Well, tip number 1 is to continue to have a pattern to your day. If you had that from birth, that's great. If not, now's the time to do that. What do I mean by a pattern is that you have the same order of things. So when your little one wakes up, for example, you might do some playing, some feeding first, a little bit of a play, nappy change, and back down to sleep. So every time you wake up, it's like this feed, play, change, sleep. Feed, play, change, sleep. So they get used to that pattern of the day. The second tip is to be flexible, but to start to introduce some fixed points in the day. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, every day is not going to go exactly to plan. Like I said, we're not looking to get a strict schedule here. What we are looking to do is to create a pattern to the day and to start to get a routine. But you can start to fix a couple of points in the day. And the easiest points to start with are bedtime. So start getting a time that your baby goes down to bed, and typically you want that to be around that 7 to 7:30 mark. It might be slightly earlier, but you don't want it to be much later than that. And then you can just kind of try and lock in that first nap of the day. So once they get up, let's say they're getting up at 6, you're giving them sort of that 2 hours, an hour and a half of awake time, and then you're going to be putting them down at say 8 for their first nap of the day. So you're kind of starting to get those 2 points anchored, and the rest of the day you will have to be flexible, because remember, some naps will be shorter than others. So that's why it's hard to say this is a strict routine or strict schedule to have them on. Tip number 3 is to continue to put your baby down while they're awake but drowsy. If you currently do rock or feed your little one, sing them to sleep, shush them to sleep, they're going to keep expecting that for a long time. So you want to try and put them down whilst they're drowsy but awake. This is another reason that I suggest having that pattern of feeding when they first wake up, because unfortunately what a lot of babies do is they associate that feeding with sleeping. If you get them up and you play, you change their nappy, and then you feed, they often fall asleep while you're feeding, and then it's really hard to start putting them down drowsy. So try feeding them when they first wake up, do a little bit of a play, then a nappy change, and then down for their nap. The other thing you want to do is you want to pay attention to their day sleep. You want to make sure that they're having enough day sleep, but they're not oversleeping, especially when it comes to naps. If they start to have naps that's going beyond 3 hours, I would suggest waking them up at the 3-hour mark and letting them, and then playing. Of course, still making sure that you're keeping to those awake windows and not letting your little one get overtired. what you don't want to do is keep them awake and kind of think, oh, if I keep them awake in the day, they'll sleep better at night. That doesn't happen. All that happens is they become overtired and they don't sleep at night. So you want to still make sure they're getting enough sleep, but don't let them kind of that oversleep in the day. Then continue, tip 5 is to still continue with that day and night and distinguishing that for your baby. Now, by now, your little one should not be confused about night and day. That confusion with day and night normally disappears around the 4-week mark. But you want to continue to have different routines for your day and your night. So whilst you will still have a nap routine, so that might be, like I said, it might be, okay, now you're doing your nappy change, you give them a little, a lullaby or a book, and then you're putting them down and you follow that routine before nap. And then for bedtime, you obviously have, where you're having a bath, a little massage, you're giving them their final, you're getting them dressed, you might have a book or a lullaby, and then it's down for bed. You're following the same pattern, but they start to know that this is day and night. Again, keeping interactions, to your night to a minimum, keeping your lights dimmed, your voice low, not major interaction when they wake up at night, and then in the day, keeping things light, bright, more interactive, getting them outdoors, just so they continue to know that difference between day and night. So tip number 6 is think about transitioning to a crib. So if right now your little one sleeps in a bassinet or a side sleeper, or you might be still bed sharing if you've chosen to do that, now might be the time to think about transitioning your little one to a crib. This way you can start to put them down, which is my next tip, tip 7, down to sleep in the same place every single day in their own space. Now, it's not always going to be possible, I know, for naps, because especially if you have other children and you're on the go, you can't always put them down in the same place. Sometimes they have to do their nap on the go, but wherever you can, putting them down in the same place in their own room for their naps and bedtime. You're just going to create those healthy sleep habits. Also at this age, you can now start trying to put them down without a swaddle. By now, their that startle reflex has kind of disappeared, and so they can start sleeping without a swaddle. Now, you might want to transition them gradually, one arm at a time. I do have, I'll put a link in the description of this video to both an article and a video around transitioning your little one out of a swaddle. But now's the time you might want to think about transitioning them, because from that sort of 4-month mark onwards, little ones start learning to roll over, and you really need to have them out of their swaddle by then. So now is the time to start thinking about that. And then the tip number 9 is to have that consistent bedtime routine. So really making sure that you are following a routine for bed, so they really understand that this is night. Bath, like I said, bath, massage, in their pajamas, final feed, book, little lullaby, whatever one you want to do, and then put them down for bed. Now, you might think, okay, so what does a sleep schedule look like? Like I said, this is not about having a strict schedule. It's more about a routine, but I will put a link in the description of this video to a schedule that you can kind of follow as a guide. Generally, that schedule is based on your little one taking 4 naps and having 90 minutes of awake time. But you'll have to adjust that. Like I said, it's about having more of a pattern and a routine to the day more than a strict schedule at this age. Now, what are some of the potential problems that parents find with their 3-month-old or sleep problems at this age? So one of the problems that sometimes parents find is that their little one doesn't want to go back to sleep after waking in the night. So what if you get that? The thing is a lot of the times because they're enjoying that company, that interaction. So make sure when they wake at night, you really are keeping your interactions to a complete minimum. Low voice, very little talking, it's mechanical. You get them up, you feed them, you change them, you put them back down. Don't start doing a lot of interaction, because this makes them get too awake and then they just want to, okay, well, I've slept for a bit of a chunk of time, it's time to play. The other issue is some babies at this age still are not falling asleep independently, especially if they are used to being fed to sleep, or like I said, you've been rocking them to sleep, etc. That is why you want to start training them to fall asleep independently. Now, I know that word training sounds terrible, and some people get quite, I don't want to sleep train them. I'm not saying to you to sleep train them at this age. What you're trying to do is create good sleep habits for them. And one way to do that is to let them start learning how to fall asleep independently. The moment they can do that, then when they wake in the night, they can put themselves back to sleep. They're not relying on you to put them back to sleep. The next thing is sometimes parents find their babies fuss a lot at night. If your baby is fussing a lot, just wait a few minutes before you go into them and see if they will settle on their own. The other good thing is if you start to transition them out of their swaddles, a lot of babies then start to use their hands to self-soothe. So another reason to start transitioning out of the swaddle is so your little one can start to soothe themselves when they fuss in the night. But if they do, just wait a few minutes. I'm not saying let them, scream for hours. That's not what I'm saying. Just let them, fuss for a few minutes and actually see if they'll resettle without you going to them straight away. Because sometimes they will just resettle on their own. And the other challenge sometimes parents face is that the little one wants to constantly night feed. Now, at this age, they still do require to be fed in the night. They're only, 3 months old. At this time, like I said, some babies are consolidating their sleep to 5 to 6 hours, so they're waking only once, maybe twice in the night. If you find your baby's waking frequently 4 or 5 times, it is probably more out of habit than it is out of hunger. So this is why creating those good sleep habits by putting them down drowsy, detaching that dependency from being fed to sleep by having the feed first when they wake up, because otherwise what they do is they wake up, can't get themselves back to sleep. If you've been feeding them to sleep, you think, okay, they just need to be fed, so you're feeding them, but it's actually just their way of going back to sleep. So start to, some of the other tips that I spoke about, start to implement, because this way you'll stop that constant night waking, which often becomes just a habit. So that is really sort of what a 3-month-old sleep routine looks like. And like I said, don't worry too much at this stage. If your little one is, not quite, consolidating their sleep yet, it will come. And it's about creating that good, healthy sleep routine and those good, healthy sleep habits at this stage. Don't be putting a lot of pressure on yourself to have a strict routine. Yes, a strict schedule. Yes, use the schedule as a guide, but just understand your days are going to be flexible, and some days are going to work out really well, and other days you're going to go, because they only took a whole lot of short little cat naps. And that is it for a 3-month sleep schedule. Thanks, and bye for now.